Holla ballers! What's going on? It's Preacher, and with 6.2 fast approaching, I thought it might be a good time to check out which of your specs are likely to be changing in favour of things that have been buffed and left in the dirt and all that kind of good stuff, and which ones you might be changing to. Now, there's certain classes going to be skipped here, obviously. Things like Monk, you'll be playing Windwalker if you want damage, and Mistweaver if you want to heal. So that kind of idea. Shaman, if you prefer melee, you're going to be playing Enhancement. If you prefer range, you're going to be playing Elemental. Similar with Druids. So, no much point in looking at those specs in terms of this video, which is the changes. I will say, just to preface this with some overall thoughts that are maybe worth greater discussion, is that Blizzard has once again decided to intrinsically tie some classic baseline abilities and to make certain playstyles in PvE tied to set bonuses once again. This was something we saw and made big note of in the WoD beta, is that some spells were really lackluster, but oh look! The set bonus in the PvE world actually makes that spell worth a piss again. And they're doing it once again. They're doing it this time. We're seeing some core functionality. Even in terms of warriors are getting their old sudden death back. I mean, these are nothing new. These are actually, in many cases, Wandering Plague is back for DKs in the form of the Archimon trinket. All these kind of classic core abilities that were stripped away in WoD are actually making a return in the form of set bonuses and trinket procs, which is an odd design choice. It does feel like people in the PvE world who have their set bonuses are essentially playing a different class, because the functionality and the way that class plays is very, very different. Also puts me in an odd position for creating guides for that content for people who are having the set bonuses and people who aren't, because their class plays very differently. So we'll look at that further down the line. In regards to guides, they will return in 6.2. It's so imminently coming out, and all the classes seem to be settling a little bit, that it's worth holding back until we actually get 6.2, and then I can sort of go ham and get all the guides out. And maybe I'm looking at it, and maybe you guys can let me know in the comments, do you want to see stuff that's without set bonuses and stuff that's with, or both, or we'll see what we can work out there. Maybe just mention it in the guides, I'll figure out a system, and maybe you guys can put some input into that, into how you would like it to be seen. Okay, so let's jump into it. Let's start off, let's do it alphabetical. So let's go Death Knights. Frost is back, guys. Frost is back. Currently simming. And I hate to use that word because it's kind of theoretical, that Frost both two-hander and dual wield seems to be just above Unholy. And I say just above, it seems to be reasonably balanced with Frost pulling ahead. I'm okay with it. We've had Unholy for a long time, longer than we've seen in the past, honestly. Unholy was just so tired and dead for so many expansions, realistically, from when I mained a Death Knight up until now. And now Unholy's been great for most of Warlords of Draenor. And Frost has been left to rot, honestly. Let's be honest about this. Although I favour Unholy, I do personally. I prefer the Unholy playstyle. It's not nice to see that just one of your other choice in DPS was actually just left to die, and Frost is now coming back in a big way. So nice to see that. I'm sure many DKs out there who prefer Frost will be happy, and those who prefer Unholy will maybe be a little bit pissed. But again, it always comes down to how the encounters will work. But traditionally, having said that, Frost tends to fare better as doing things like big burst AoE at range with Howling Blast and being able to just tie in crits and use a relatively simple DPS cooldown, which lines up really nicely. Tends to put Frost naturally ahead of Unholy given similar circumstances, so we'll see how that plays out. Let's look at Hunters! Okay, so BM has remained pretty much untouched with some really interesting set bonuses that gives a lot of passive damage, which I know a lot of people are pissed about, but it is the way the game is now, is to take a lot of control out of your hands. Marksmen did get a slight buff, but it seems that BM is still the best. Okay, so although Marksman has had a buff, unfortunately Survival is pretty dog shit right now. I remember these are all open to change. I mean, 6.2 is not out yet, but this is the way it is looking. So you're looking to probably be BM or MM, more likely leaning towards BM, but it's going to be close. It's going to be close. So if you play one better, which is always kind of an awkward discussion with Hunters, is those specs are very similar, and you can do some very cheesy things with Focus Fire with BM Hunters, I'm sure many of you Raiders know about. Then it's probably going to be leaning still towards BM. Although Marksman is, you know, it's around and it's doing stuff. So, and Marksman, it's way more fun. Instant cast aim shots and stuff. Yes, please. Thank you so very, very much, Blizz. Nice to see that back. With the mages, Fire and Arcane still. Fire and Arcane still. Now, I will say that heavily based on the Hellfire Citadel fights, Fire, more than likely, is going to be the go-to, because there's always something to cleave. From what I can tell, there's always some stuff you can spread your combustion to. Although the 4-piece, which I'm sure every fire mage in the world who has it is loving right now, will be going away. It does seem relatively balanced around the fact that you will be losing that, and you can still crit your ass off all day, every day. So yeah, probably mostly going to be fire. No big changes for mages, ultimately. New set bonuses, old one going away, new ones coming in, and fire and arcane all the way. So a little sad for Frost. I love Frost. Frost is way more fun, a lot more interaction going on with Frost, in my opinion, than the rather static arcane. Or the now even, dare we say it, predictable fire. I would like to have seen Frost make a comeback, but unfortunately not likely. The Warlocks are the most interesting, and this is the one that's likely to have some alteration coming its way. The Warlocks, all 3 specs are pretty viable now. Demo has been nerfed. There's no doubt about that. Demo has been not crushed, but definitely nerfed back. And Affliction seems to be pushing ahead as the single target spec, and Destro returning as the King of Cleave. So, interesting for those who are sick and tired of playing Demo is, yes, your other specs are back and doing their business. And also, we also have to look at both sides of the coin here, as a lot of Warlocks don't like Affliction or Destruction because they're incredibly gutted from Mists of Pandaria in terms of snapshotting, and there's not really a lot of enjoyment there. It might be a bit nostalgic to think, oh god, I wish I could play Affliction again. Likelihood is, after you do that for a month or so, you might be like, oh god, I wish I could play Demo again. And see how that's going out, because I love Demo. I will say, I think a good point here is, although Demo has been nerfed, Demo's strength lies in its versatility. And that's one of the big key points of Demonology, is that it has so many niche abilities that it's able to counter various mechanics and take opportunities where the other specs simply cannot. So there might be hope that all 3 are relatively balanced, with you having to switch around. I don't particularly like that, especially with dual spec in existence. It's never nice to have 3 different specs that you might be able to choose from. It likely won't end that way, but still, that is the way it is looking right now, with the general favoritism towards Affliction on single target, and maybe even with some multi-cleave. But generally, if you're going to be doing dual cleave, you'll be looking at Destro. And Demonology, I don't want to put too much in stone here, because the Warlocks seem to be the ones that are likely to get some sort of change again before 6.2 launches. I've missed the Rogues. Let's do the Rogues now. So the Rogues are looking at a return to Assassination. However, the set bonuses are really, really good for sub. Now, from my point of view, I will be more than happy to see Assassination be completely viable. If you look at any sort of footage from 6.2's PTR from anybody who's doing the raid testing, I'm purposely avoiding it to have a fresh look. They're all playing Assassination, which is nice to see. It has been left in the dirt for a very long time, although it actually worked out quite well for raiding Rogues, is that combat and sub were, in fact, greatly equal in gear. You just had to change your weapons, essentially, and you could play either spec, which was great. Now, Assassination doesn't really work that way. Assassination has a very different stat weight. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out long term, especially if combat is required for various fights that have a lot of cleave going on, which is tends to be where combat goes, or will we be able to get away with just spamming ruptures and seeing what goes on with our venomous wounds, blah, 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 blah. We'll see how that plays out, but it's nice to see Assassination making a comeback. Is it going to be over sub? Doesn't look like it, but it's going to be very close, and a lot of people don't like maximizing sub. And if you're not very good at that, then maybe Assassination is just naturally better for you. As always, in these situations where you have one that's spec that has a little bit more coordination, has a little bit more to think about compared to a spec that does not, and they're both reasonably equal, is people tend to favour the easier spec. Why? The answer's obvious. It's easier, I make less mistakes during the fight. It's as simple as that. Warriors! Warriors are one of those, again, that's getting core functionality returned to them. They're getting the Mortal Strike Sudden Death back in the form of, I believe it's the Trinket. It might even be the set bonus. Regardless, Warriors remain pretty much unchanged. Warriors, Blizz seems really happy. I was hoping to see some stuff with Glad, with Gladiator having some sort of boost up there, but not really happening. They seem to be leaving Warriors pretty much as they are, with Fury being the single target and Arms being the cleave spec with that oh-so-powerful Rend. What? If you were to tell me that a year ago, if you were to tell me a year ago it'd be all about the Rend, I would have been laughing my ass off. But after doing the WOD beta and the alpha and playing my Warriors the first choice, yeah, it's not that surprising. So, yeah, Warriors are a little disappointing because they have various issues, and it's a little sad that they're not addressing DPS Warrior survivability, and before everyone jumps down my throat saying, we can survive everything. Yeah, sure, Kush can. There's no doubt about that, but you can't do it as well as many of the other melee classes, which is always going to be a disappointment, and it would be nice to have had something else to help out those DPS warriors a little bit, just in case there are ridiculously high survivability fights. You tend to be left in the dust in those situations compared to, hey, I'm a rogue, man. You're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. I press feint and I'm fine. You know what I mean? I can do that all the time. It's completely ridiculous compared to not being able to do anything but sit in defensive stance. So warriors remaining pretty much unchanged and staying pretty much as they are, and just looking forward to some really nice weapons. I assume, guys, you're going to be looking forward to them, like crushing faces and spamming that mortal strike, which is likely what you're doing in cleave fights with lots and lots of MS resets to look forward to, which anybody who played a warrior for a long time will have already experienced, and it's just a classic return. So there you go. Those are the classes that have choices in their specs, and those are the changes you're likely to see. This is always open to change, guys. It's kind of how it's looking right now, so don't lose your shit just yet. If you have feedback, go and post it, send it to Blizzard, give them some ideas. If there's certain specs that you think might become popular and you're not happy with, then, you know, don't tell me. Don't tell me. That's not my job. I don't work there. You go tell them and let them know what you think. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.